I'm Lucy Marvellous from Fresher Bites. Today I'm going to show you how to cook a really delicious beef stew. You don't need much equipment: chopping board, knife, spoon, pan. Let's go. So we're going to start by browning our meat. Here's my 500 grams of beef from the butcher's. We need to heat the oil in the pan. Put some olive oil in. A couple of tablespoons. It's important that the meat doesn't steam, so we need to do it in batches, like handfuls. Probably a couple of batches is alright for this amount of meat. Put it all nice and hot, drop it in separately. You want each piece to get browned all over. It really adds to the finished flavour. You could do this in a frying pan, but as you know, I'm not keen on washing up. The saucepan is fine. Right, let that do its thing. And while that's browning, I can be preparing my vegetables. Here's my onion with its pointy top, rooty bottom. It's the root that makes us cry, so we are going to keep the root intact as much as possible. Cool it. Nice sharp knife. If it wasn't sharp, I'd definitely sharpen it, but it actually is. Ridge hold, cut it in half, peel off the peel that we don't want. You're fine with brown onions. My fella likes red onions, so that's what he buys. So there's our onions peeled, roots kept intact. Follow the lines on the onion. Put the point of your knife in, near to the root of the onion, but not all the way through. We want to keep the root intact for as long as possible. So we keep putting the knife in and pushing down. Turn to a claw grip, slice, moving your fingers back all the time. When you get to the root, chuck it away. Using the tip of your knife, you don't want to get all the way to the root. Keep the root intact, like this. Cool grip, slice. If your knife's nice and sharp, this is really quite easy. Okay, I've got my wooden spoon. This is now stuck to the bottom. If I tried to move it before it was seared, it would not have turned over as well. So now I need to give it a good jiggle, get all the other parts brown too. And keep snipping. I've given these a little rinse. You get a lot of grit in them from how they grow through the soil. Cut the ends off. And in our stew we don't want big chunks of anything apart from beef, so you cut these fairly small, claw grip. Beef is still sizzling nicely away. You can see the liquid. We do want this liquid, but if this had been full of beef, it would have been too wet and it would have steamed. Carrot, that's the only bit we don't eat. Ridge hold. Think about the finished product. How big do you want the carrot to be in your stew? Not too big. There we go. So all that is ready for when the beef is browned. We're going to put in new potatoes because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to peel them. I'm going to cut them not too small. Thinking about how big you want them in your stew. Maybe quarters is fine. If you've got big potatoes, peel them, cut them into whatever size piece you want. Remember, they will shrink a little bit, the edges will come off them a bit while they're cooking. Right, that beef is brown. Beef is browned. I'm going to put it to one side. If you've already got your oven on or you're feeling rich, you can put it in the oven to keep warm, but it doesn't really matter too much. I'm just going to pop it into here with that liquid. We want that, that's going to add to the flavour. And we also don't want the next batch to steam. So if you need it, a little bit more oil. Don't need too much. The rest of your beef. handle beef or any meat, fish or eggs, make sure you wash your hands. Give that a little stir and then let it stick to the bottom of the pan. There's our second batch, lovely and brown. Put that there while we fry off the vegetables. You can see there's some little bits stuck in the bottom of the pan. They're going to be delicious. So we're going to use the oil to scrape that off, deglaze the pan, and then mix all these lovely chopped vegetables in there. It'll take about 5 minutes to brown and soften. There's your lovely mixed vegetables. 5 minutes. So 5 minutes is up. During that 5 minutes I've stirred this occasionally. You need to let it sit in the heat for a while, but stir it to make sure it doesn't stick. We're now ready to add back the meat. Make our stock. That's 500 millilitres of water from a freshly boiled kettle. I'm using one of these Knorr blobs. Oxo's fine, there's loads of different things you can use. We also want a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. I've got a traditional tablespoon here. I can use a measuring spoon. Give that all a good stir. A bit of seasoning. This really is personal taste, how much salt and pepper you like. You can always put in more, but you can't take any out. Okay. A couple of bay leaves, give them a little scrunch, makes them a bit more active. Pour that in. That looks like that. Your potatoes in. Now the potatoes are going to take at least 20 minutes to cook, as is the meat. Mushrooms don't take long, which is why we're putting them in last. I like mine quite chunky. I'll just chop the stems up and put them in quarters, but some people don't. And there isn't anything to thicken this stew. It's not going to have a gloopy sauce. You could add some flour later if you want, but I don't think it really makes much difference. It's going to taste great. You'll see that's quite a lot of mushrooms, but they will shrink down and they'll make a lot of really nice flavour as well. So you need to bring that back to the boil. Okay, that's boiling really nicely now. Pop the lid back on, turn it right down to a simmer. You can check that it's simmering. Put my phone timer on for an hour. I will probably come back and give it a stir. Okay, that's my hour. Bubbling away nicely. As you can see, that's beautifully cooked. You could test a piece of meat, see how tender it is. You can see it's got quite a wet sauce. We're going to thicken that up with a little bit of corn flour and water. We'll let it cool a bit first because we don't want it to make lumps. So I'll just take it off the gas and we'll make the corn flour and water mixture. Okay, if you want to thicken your sauce up, a little bit of water in the bottom of the cup, a tablespoon of corn flour, rounded rather than heaped. You need to mix this to a really smooth paste. If there's any lumps in this, they will make nasty floury lumps in your sauce. There we go. We've let that sauce cool a little bit because this will start to thicken as soon as it boils. I'm going to just move some of the meat and potatoes out of the way so that I can stir this in, keep it moving. When we put this back on the boil, that corn flour will swell and that will thicken the sauce. So I'm just going to pop that back on the heat. Bring that to the boil, stirring it. You can see that's thickened it up, made it glossy. It needs to cook for a minute to cook out the flavour of the corn flour. It's really not necessary, but it does make for a nice thick sauce. At this point you can pick out your bay leaves, you won't be eating those. There you go. Beef stew. Pop over to Facebook, tell me what you'd like to see me cooking. Show me what you've been cooking, ask me some questions. Been lovely to see you. See you soon.